everyone, thank you so much for clicking to watch this video. If you're new here, my name is Sandy and on this channel we talk about pursuing a career in interior design and I give you home decor tips. Today's video is on the career side of things because I am talking to you about 6 jobs you can do with or without a design degree. Let's get right into the video. If you have seen my video on why I dropped out of design school, I talk about jobs that I did after dropping out of school to continue my experience, and one of those things was I was a project coordinator at a design firm. So I'm going to go over the first job, project coordinator, project manager, whatever you want to call it. They're kind of interchangeable in the same thing. So a project manager is a person who doesn't technically need a design degree because even though you'd be working at a design firm and doing design things, you really just need to be able to be organized and structured and be able to delegate. Those are like the main tasks, and of course you want to be a good communicator and you need to be good at communicating verbally, communicating through written form because you're doing a lot of emails and communicating back and forth with clients or vendors. I was a project coordinator for 6 months and I ended up getting the job after being a design assistant to another designer, and then she had a friend who had a firm and her firm was really busy and they needed a project coordinator. So I raised my hand. I was like, hey, it seems like something I might want to do. These are my qualifications. Would you be interested in trying me on? And she was like, yeah, sure. So that was a super cool experience. And I was so busy, and I remember learning just so much more about the industry in that role, because even though I wasn't designing, so I wasn't like, picking color palettes and picking styles and doing that kind of stuff, I was a lot of the glue of the process, if that makes sense. So what would happen is you'd get a client, right? Someone would reach out and say, hey, I want your firm to design for me. I would be the one to communicate with them initially and send them like, hey, here's your questionnaire, please fill this out, or hey, would you like us to come do an on-site consultation? Would you like to do a virtual consultation? So I'm doing that initial communication with them, and then I'm going back and forth with the lead designer about, just letting her know, hey, this is coming on the horizon, this is what they say they want. And now I would find out kind of like what her schedule was, and I would either schedule for her to come out to their place or us to do a virtual meeting. So I'm doing that part. Then after they have their meeting, I would be tasked with sending the client a write-up. If this was a new client, definitely they should get a write-up. If it was a client where like we had been doing their home for a while and they just wanted to add on an extra room and we wanted a consultation for that, that always didn't require a write-up because you just have like more rapport with that person, so they trust you and they don't necessarily need all the formalities that like a new client would. So those are just like some of the nuances I learned in that. And after we have this consultation, virtual or in person, you're either taking measurements of the space and then they're giving you, the vibe of like what they want. Hey, I want hey, this is the mood board I have, if they're that organized. It is so rare that a client will even have that for you. Especially people who just like, they have money and they know they want it to look nice and they have like nothing else for you after that. That is challenging, especially when they have nothing. But it's, you get what you get and you have to make it work. So if they have some design pictures, you're like, okay, great, give me that. And then you might say, organize those in some kind of like project management software where you're like, okay, the client's inspiration lives here. Then the lead designer is going and looking at that and going back and forth with the junior designer or whoever the virtual renderer person is. And now they're all in their process and they're going back and forth about their designs. And I would be communicating with the client, hey, thank you so much for the consultation. We are, we have all this information. I would say maybe this is what we need. Hey, we need these pictures, especially if it was virtual and we haven't physically been in the space. We need these pictures and we need these measurements. Or if the client is in town, then you would then schedule, hey, I'm gonna come out, if you didn't already go out. And then I would have to like coordinate the address and make sure everybody has the address, everybody knows the time. If it was virtual, then the client has to like send you pictures and send you a floor plan. So I'd say, hey, we need these things from you. And then once we get these things, I'll send an email that says, these are the dates. Hey, you can expect your initial design at this time. You can expect, once we have your feedback, you can expect your revisions around this time, yada, yada, yada. Just laying it all out for them so that they know what to expect. So when that's happening, because there are other clients and other projects, people are in different stages. Some people are in the, hey, here are your dates, and they're sitting on their hands waiting for a design from you, and they've given you everything they need. Some people, you're hunting them down, like nudging them, hey, I still don't have these pictures from you, I still don't have inspiration images from you. Then someone else you're saying, or someone else is in a different process. So they're like they've already approved the design, and you're like, okay, now I have to, thank you for approving your design. Here's a list of all the items we intend to buy for you. This is how much it's gonna cost. Here's your invoice. So now you're like waiting for someone to pay an invoice. All of this stuff is happening at the exact same time. It can be chaotic, and it is a lot. Oh my gosh, I remember just like sometimes being like, feeling like I was a little underwater, but good. It was good experience. It helped me understand the parts of the industry I do like and I don't like, but this is a project manager. You're also thinking about budget. Sometimes there's like a totally different person that keeps a project on budget depending on how large your firm is. If you're working at like a small startup firm, then it's likely that the project manager and the lead designer are working back and forth on budget together. But if you're working at a really big firm, there's like a person that handles all the money and they do all that. And then I would also make sure that I was going back and forth with the receiving company. So you may also have a client who's in the stage of, they've approved their design, they've given you money, you've ordered everything, and now you're waiting for things to be delivered. And if something gets delayed, you have to update your client, hey, this has been delayed. And you have to make sure that, because you're gonna be the first person to know, because you're the one monitoring all the emails and the communication. You're gonna have to make sure the lead designer sees the email. You're gonna have to make sure you communicate with them about how you want to communicate to the client. Hey, your thing has been delayed. Hey, da da da. Like, there's so many moving pieces that you have to keep track of. But if you are someone who is super organized and you can do all that, off to you. So that was a lot. There's a lot of moving pieces at any given point in time, and you definitely have to keep track, especially as your firm gets busier. And really rewarding though, like when you are able to like really develop a system and like get all the gears and get things automated and get emails automated and get invoicing automated and da 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 da, you're like, oh great, it's like a nice little symphony. You're like the little conductor, and you're like, okay, violins come in, cello come in, all that. And it feels good when it's going right, and it feels terrible when it is going wrong. But again, if you're someone who's that organized, then this could be a job that you may want to check out. And you don't need a design degree to do it. You really just need to be able to sell your skills of like organization and your ability to implement systems that make the design firms, people who work at the design firms' jobs easier. If you guys are interested in a video of the kinds of like softwares that designers use for like project management, to stay organized and all that kind of stuff, how to invoice, let me know. Because I could make a video like that where I go over some of the different programs that I know different designers use. Not necessarily that all the ones that I use at that particular firm that I worked at, but just stuff that I've seen designers use across the board. Job number 2. So I'm gonna give this 3 titles because I've seen it be called 3 different things, like buyer, specifier, procurement person. This is the person at the firm who is specifically in charge of like buying furniture and making specification lists, that kind of thing. Usually when you're at a smaller place, like if there's like maybe 5 people and under, the designers are the ones doing this kind of thing, or the project manager is the one doing it and helping them with this kind of thing. At bigger firms, so places that have like over 50 people, there are specific individuals who only do this. So they're not making mood boards, they're not designing, they may not even have communication with the client. They may just go back and forth with the designer says, hey, this is the look, this is what we're going for, especially for places that have like commercial design. So these are people who are doing like apartment complexes, senior home facilities, schools, hospitals. They give the design and then they hand it off and they say, hey, find furniture that looks like this, that meets these specifications, that's like medical grade or contract grade or can be used in a commercial space, yada yada yada. And you come up with a massive list that has every chair that's going in there, every light that's going in there, how many you're going to need, the finish of the light, how long it takes to come in, how much it costs versus how much you're selling it to the client for. It's just like all the finish of it, the dimensions of the item, all of that. It's a massive list depending on how big the project is. So this is interesting. It's the person who is picking all this furniture is different from the person who actually made the design. And again, this happens generally at bigger firms. I feel like these two people really have to work in tandem, because they could end up picking stuff that the person who designed didn't really intend. I noticed that would happen sometimes when I was a project manager and I was also tasked with, hey, just find some stuff that looks like this, and then I'd present it and it would like maybe be the wrong thing or just not the vibe of that designer. So I honestly don't like super enjoy being someone separate than the person who designed it, because I think there's just like a lot of room for error. However, the experience that you learn when you're able to like get so familiar with furniture, and you get to know, like, if I need something mid-century, if I need something traditional, if I need something glam, if I need something regal, you start to know design brands off like the top of your head. You could like read them off, and you start to understand anything that I'm ordering for this kind of product is going to take me like 6 to 8 weeks. So you start to be able to communicate you start building this library of knowledge in your head about like, okay, if a client wants this, look, I'm telling you right now, that's going to be like 10 weeks out. And because you know, and you're able to help people set expectation. So that is a super strong skill that you will come out of from a position like that. And again, you don't have to be a designer, but for this, you do need a bit of a design eye, more so than project management, because project management, those skills are applicable anywhere. But this is like furniture specific. So you could also be, as the procurement and the buyer person, you could be the person setting up the accounts with these companies. So you're learning about these companies, you're learning about, do they need a minimum order? Do I have to order 50 chairs to buy one of these chairs? If there's a brand that requires, you know, $15,000 to, you know, open an order, and your client only wants these 2 nightstands that don't cost $15,000, you start to learn, oh, okay, well, I can't shop there for this particular client based off their budget. So I really, really enjoyed developing that skill while I was in the position that I was in, because it's very, very valuable, and I know that I'm going to use it in the future. If you are someone who would really miss like actually being the one designing, then this could potentially just like not be something that you want to do, because it's really more so being like an arm of the designer and not being the designer. So that's just something to think about. The third job that you can do without a design degree is you can become a render artist or a virtual design artist. There are a couple ways to do this. One of the ways that you can pursue this is you can teach yourself SketchUp, you can teach yourself V-Ray, 3ds Max, all the things. You can teach yourself the rendering softwares, whatever you want to learn. And then you can go into like Upwork or Fiverr or whatever. Once you build this skill, you can, you know, just find a random floor plan online, build that, design it, make it look pretty, or you could, you know, design your own room. Just, you need to get renderings out there so people know what your capabilities are. And rendering artists, they can either just give you pretty photos, or they can give you 3D walkthroughs of a space, and you can just do that, right? So people are just sending you spaces that they want you to either 3D render for them, or they're sending you spaces that they want you to design and 3D render. So there's 2 different options, right? So say I'm a designer and I don't have a 3D skill, but I want to present it to my client in 3D. I just don't do 3D. I go to your website, Fiverr, Upwork, whatever. You have this 3D, you know, ability, and I say, hey, this is my client's space. These are the different pieces of furniture I want to put in there. I give you the links, I give you the dimensions to everything, and then you would go and then build it. You would build it out, and then you would show it to me, and then you would send me pictures, and then I would use those pictures that I present that to my client. Or maybe you make a walkthrough video for me, and then I go and I present that to my client. So in this instance, I'm just using you for your 3D skills, not for your design skills, because I don't need you to design, I'm a designer. Another case would be someone wants you to do a 3D space for them and they want your design input. So they also want you to, show them a color palette, show them a new, cool wall feature, show them a different placement for the window, show them, whatever. They can want to the level of styling, they can want to the level of a full renovation of their home. So not just, show me new colors and new furniture, show me a whole new layout. Show me the kitchen. The kitchen is here right now, I want the kitchen on this side now, show me that. So this is definitely a higher level, and you would do a lot of back and forth communication with your client. Hey, the kitchen's here, but is there a plumbing wall on this side and you want the kitchen over there? That may not be feasible. So those are things to consider. You could also be, so that those descriptions that I gave is someone who was like freelancing and either has their own business. You can go work at a firm and just be the 3D person. And you're the person who just maybe models the structure. Perhaps you're just the person who builds the architectural structure. I build all the windows and the walls and the doors and the floors. And then you could hand that off to somebody else, and there could be someone who builds all the furniture. And they could be the person who, I build all the furniture and I'm gonna put it here off to the side, and then there's like a totally separate person who goes in and puts it all together and makes it pretty. So places that are generally bigger are gonna have that level of an assembly line. Places that are smaller is gonna be like kind of one person that like does all those things. So 3D rendering is a skill that you can completely learn outside of school. You do not need to go to school to learn and go and be a 3D render artist. You just go take you can take courses on DOMESTIKA. I will link a couple of them below that I've seen that are good and affordable. There is a YouTuber, her YouTube channel is called Specifier, and she has a cool course. Not only does she teach you SKETCHUP, but in her course she also teaches you Inkscape, which is cool. That's a different rendering software, and you could go into that. There are, I'll link her course as well. There are just like so many people. There are free options here on YouTube. Just look up SketchUp, just look up V-Ray, 3ds Max, whatever, and you're gonna see people showing you how to do this. The software itself is not cheap. That is the part I will say that is a bit more costly. I think it might be like $300 a year or something like that. So honestly, if it's for the year, it's really not that bad, especially if this becomes your career and you start developing money. And if you're working at a firm, the firm will generally pay for you to have this software. However, to teach yourself it, you would have to like try they do like 30-day free trials and kind of stuff like that. So you can get your feet wet normally for free. And you want to make sure that you have a computer that has the capability of downloading the software, because these softwares are pretty intense. You will hear your fan run pretty heavy on your computer, and they're not always Mac friendly. I know they came out with a new Mac that's supposed to be like kind of like a gaming Mac and should be able to process those programs, I think. But most of the programs that I know are more PC friendly, and then if you have a Mac, you have to do like some kind of adapter or something like that. So this is the only one that I'm mentioning in terms of jobs that has like mechanical requirements, whereas the other ones it's like, okay, just get experience. But this is a very viable option, and it's a skill that you can learn outside of school that is very lucrative. People will pay a lot of money for good renders. You can also become a furniture designer. So this one, I still think this one doesn't necessarily require a design degree. A furniture designer, most of the time I hear a furniture designer referred to as an industrial designer. So you wouldn't necessarily go to school for interior design, although there are interior designers that I remember learning about in school that go into developing lines of furniture. So not just, oh, I'm working with a brand and I license my name and they slap my name on this piece of furniture and I'm like, yes. But people who are legitimately designing furniture, they're sketching it out, they're drawing it out, they're considering, how people feel when they sit in a chair, how people feel when they're at this table, how tall people are, short people are, or someone who's a child, or someone versus someone who may be in their senior years. They're considering all these different things in who is going to experience their piece of furniture. They're very knowledgeable in materials and what's reproducible, how they would be transporting this furniture. That is all very technical, and mostly, again, I hear this referred to more as industrial design, but I do know that interior designers have gone on to become furniture designers. So if you're someone who you know, you have a whole new idea for coffee tables, and you have a whole new idea for, you know, lighting or sofas or whatever, and you're like, I don't know, circles, whatever, let's say, all sofas should be in the shape of ovals or something, and you want to do something cool, you have the ability to do that. There's even a course that I remember they offered in school, and I ended up leaving school prior to taking this course, but there's a furniture design course. So you learn about people who design furniture, and then you have to design your own furniture. You have to either make it through like actual, you have to make a 3D model, so not just like with foam paper, but with actual materials, or you do sketching, and you have to like shade it in and make it look nice and pretty with all the fancy color pencils and all that good stuff. So consider furniture design if you're someone who's just more tactile and wants to be in that world and in that side of the design spectrum. Last but not least is interior styling or set styling. So I talked about in my other video of 6 jobs you can get with a design degree, I talked about becoming a set designer. And that video goes more in depth into what set design is, but a quick just little sentence is people who like design like movie sets and stuff. When you see someone having a bedroom or in their kitchen or whatever and they're a character in a movie or a show, someone had to actually design that in a way that it relates to the story and to that particular character. So that is a set designer. There are people who are set stylists, and one of my favorite people that I like to follow online who's a set stylist, I think she also offers design services, but I think she started out as a set stylist, is Gianna, I hope I'm saying her name right, I'm sorry I'm butchering it. It's Gianna Short, I think. I'm gonna look up her Instagram right now. Gianna Shorthouse, I was right. Yes, prop styling for brands, and she does interior styling. So I'm gonna put her stuff up on the screen. Her stuff is really beautiful, and she's like super cute herself. And what she'll do, I would hope so. I would love to have her like on the channel. I'm gonna reach out to her and see if I can like interview her for the channel, because a lot of people have asked me about becoming a set stylist, becoming an interior stylist, and it's like a really fun job, but it's like hard to get into because you don't really go to school to become an interior stylist. You don't necessarily need to go through the in-depth of school. Anywho, I digress. What I have garnered from her channel, and then I ended up going to a design event where she spoke on the panel, was she will help photographers and she will help videographers. So if I'm a photographer, let's say I'm a photographer for Home and Gardens or something, or Southern Living or something, and I'm going to a grand home and I'm taking pictures. When you're taking pictures, because I have done interior photography in the past for other designers and they pay for it, there's so much to consider. You not only have to worry about all the lighting in your equipment, the designer will also be there, but the designer isn't necessarily, they don't necessarily have a photographic eye. So what a set stylist does is they have the photographic eye with interior design, like interior styling knowledge. So they know, hey, this looks good in person, but on camera, the pillow should be like this. And it might be weird. It might be a way that you would normally have your furniture or your pillows or your books or your vases or anything, but it's gonna look good for the shot. It's gonna look good for whatever ad it is. They're the people who they have all the extra flowers, and they have the vases, and they have a steamer to make sure that the fabric curtains are like straight, you know, not wrinkly. They have, maybe they have tape. For example, I used to work at a showroom, and one thing that we have done to get pillows to stand up straight, like the ears of a pillow, especially when they have like a band of fabric that might be floppy and the ears look kind of floppy on the pillow, they'll take clear tape and put it on the back so that way it stands up straight, which is great for a photo, but in real life it wouldn't make sense to have tape on your pillows. So remembering to do like small stuff like that. Think of food photography, for instance. So there are videos here on YouTube that you can find where you'll learn that they put mashed potatoes in ice cream because mashed potatoes aren't gonna melt. They will pour motor oil on pancakes to make it look like syrup because motor oil sits on top of the pancake and pancake syrup would melt inside and it wouldn't look the same. They will paint pepperonis with nail polish to make them look more, just more appetizing, or burgers always look so fluffy in photos, and they put little tiny pieces of cardboard in between each like ingredient. So they'll put like the bun, cardboard, the meat, cardboard, lettuce, cardboard, tomato, cardboard, and then it all looks like separate and like fluffy, but obviously you wouldn't eat anything like that. So an interior stylist has to have that level of detail and eye to an interior environment. They're bringing in all the extra styling and propping tools so that the photographer can just focus on being the photographer and focusing on their equipment, and the designer just is there to make sure that their design is being spoken to in terms of how they intend it to be spoken to, but also, you know, the stylist is kind of going back and forth between, you know, design and what's photographically appropriate or what's video appropriate. So this is such a niche field. It's such a particular field, but these are important people for all the publications that you consume. Every time you've picked up Architectural Digest, or you've picked up any kind of magazine, or you're scrolling online and you're seeing these really pretty, beautiful pictures, so much went into doing that. And there's not just the designer and the photographer. There's like the in-between person, that's the stylist. So that is a job that you can do. You don't need a degree to do it. I do know people who have degrees who do it, but it's definitely not a job that requires that. That concludes today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys want to see more videos like this, or if you have questions about some of the jobs that I mentioned, or if you want to see me interview people about these particular different positions, please let me know, because I would love to go out and find them and bring them onto the channel if I can. And like I like to say at the end of all of my videos, Beyonce said, if you like it, put a ring on it. I say, if you like it, subscribe. If you like it, then you should subscribe to it. Subscribe to it. Oh my gosh, you guys can't take me seriously, but seriously, put a ring on it by hitting that subscription button and commenting some ring emojis, please. Thank you. Now get to watching some more videos. Bye.